Sometimes the universe doesn't whisper, it shatters. It takes everything you thought you couldn't live without and rips it away. The person you loved, the dream you built, the certainty you held, gone. And as you stand there in pieces, wondering why life had to hurt this much, the truth quietly emerges. This isn't destruction, it's initiation. The universe isn't breaking you to punish you, it's breaking you open, so your soul can finally breathe. Pain has a way of arriving uninvited. It doesn't knock, it breaks the door. One moment you're certain of your world, your relationships, your dreams, your direction, and the next, it's all in fragments. You feel betrayed by life itself, abandoned by the very universe you once trusted. But what if the breaking isn't cruelty? What if it's a calling, a wake-up call from something far greater than your human plans? When everything falls apart, it's often because you were never meant to live small. The universe doesn't speak in comfort, it speaks in events that shake your soul awake. You see, most people sleepwalk through life. They chase things, love, validation, success, hoping these will fill the quiet ache inside. But the ache is not meant to be filled by what's outside of you. It's meant to lead you inward, toward the truth of who you are. So, when the universe takes something you thought you needed, it's not theft, it's redirection. It's saying, you've forgotten your own power. You've mistaken attachment for meaning. The heartbreak, the failure, the loss, they aren't random. They are deliberate openings. Pain becomes the teacher that no comfort could ever replace. There's something deeply sacred about moments that shatter you, because in that collapse, illusions die. The stories you told yourself, that you're in control, that love is forever, that success defines you, all crumble. And beneath the ruins, something honest begins to emerge. The false layers of identity, who you thought you were, who you thought you needed to be, dissolve, and you meet the raw truth of your soul. The pain strips you bare until you realize you were never broken, only buried. The heartbreak didn't destroy you, it uncovered you. But the process hurts because we resist it. We fight to keep things as they were. We beg for answers, demand explanations, and try to glue back what was never meant to fit again. Yet the universe has a way of ignoring our resistance. It doesn't operate on human timelines or emotional comfort. Its only goal is growth, to evolve your consciousness, to bring you closer to truth. And truth rarely blooms in pleasure. It's born in discomfort. You only begin to see clearly when everything comfortable is stripped away. You only awaken when you can no longer pretend. When your heart breaks, your awareness expands. You start to see patterns, how every event, every loss, every person was a part of a greater design. What once looked like chaos begins to reveal a kind of cosmic precision. The pain that felt so meaningless begins to make sense, not intellectually but spiritually. You realize that life was never happening to you, it was happening for you. Every heartbreak was a doorway to a deeper love, every failure a nudge toward purpose, every ending a sacred invitation to begin again, wiser, freer, and more alive. The universe doesn't break your heart to watch you bleed, it breaks it to let the light in, because a closed heart cannot receive truth, it cannot grow, it cannot love beyond conditions. Only when it cracks open do you start to understand the depth of your own strength, the quiet power that has been waiting beneath the pain all along. And in that realization, you begin to thank the very heartbreak you once cursed, because it didn't just break you, it woke you. And that's when you finally see, the pain was never punishment. It was the universe reminding you of who you truly are. When your heart breaks, something deeper than emotion begins to move. It's not just sadness or disappointment, it's the slow death of the ego, that fragile part of you that believes it must control everything to feel safe. Heartbreak, in its rawest form, is the collapse of that illusion. It's the universe gently, or sometimes violently, pulling the mask off, showing you what lies beneath all your defenses. You think you're grieving someone, or something you lost, but what's really dying is the version of you that believed happiness could only come from them. The ego is clever. It builds its identity around people, achievements, and titles, all things that can disappear in a moment. It says, I am loved because of this, or I am worthy because of that. But when the universe takes those away, it's not being cruel, it's being honest. It's showing you that none of those external things ever truly defined you. You were never the job you lost. You were never the relationship that ended. You were never the image you worked so hard to maintain. You were always something vaster, quieter, and infinitely more powerful, but you couldn't see it through the fog of ego. When heartbreak strikes, the ego screams for control. It wants answers, closure, logic. It wants to label the experience, so it can file it away neatly and move on. But life doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't operate through logic. It moves through truth, and truth is often felt, not explained. The moment you stop trying to make sense of your pain and start sitting with it, you begin to feel something shift. The walls you built start to soften, the noise quiet beneath the confusion. There's a strange stillness, an awareness that was always there but hidden beneath layers of fear and expectation. That awareness is your soul, waiting patiently for the moment your ego would finally get tired of pretending to be in charge. Every time your heart breaks, the light of awareness gets a little stronger. You begin to see your patterns, how often you've confused attachment for love or validation for connection. You start to understand why you attract certain people or repeat certain lessons. The pain becomes your teacher, not your enemy. It reveals the ways you've abandoned yourself trying to please others, the times you ignored your intuition just to keep peace, the moments you settled for less because you feared being alone. Heartbreak doesn't just expose the pain of losing someone, it exposes the pain of losing yourself in the process. And here's the beautiful paradox. When the ego finally cracks, the soul begins to expand. In losing control, you gain clarity. In surrendering the illusion, you awaken to what's real. That's why so many people describe heartbreak as both the worst and best thing that ever happened to them, because it's the breaking point where truth begins. You start to see that peace doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go. You stop chasing love outside of yourself and start cultivating it within. You stop demanding that life go your way and begin trusting that every detour has meaning. It's in the silence after the chaos that you realize something profound. You are not the pain, you are the one witnessing it. You are not the broken pieces, you are the space that holds them. The awareness that remains when everything else falls apart. That's who you truly are. And the universe, in its mysterious wisdom, uses heartbreak to help you remember that. Because sometimes you have to lose who you thought you were to discover who you've always been. There comes a point in every heartbreak where resistance becomes exhaustion. You've cried, questioned, replayed every moment in your mind, trying to find the reason it all had to happen, but nothing makes sense. It's as if the more you fight the pain, the deeper it cuts. That's when the universe quietly asks you to do something that feels impossible, to stop fighting, to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust. Because the moment you surrender, the healing begins. We're taught that strength means holding on to the person, to the plan, to the picture of how life was supposed to be. But the truth is, real strength often looks like release. It's the courage to unclench your hands and say, I don't understand, but I trust that there's meaning in this. Surrender isn't about giving up on what you love. It's about giving in to something greater than your own idea of control. It's accepting that sometimes the universe takes away not to harm you, but to clear space for something you can't yet see. When you resist, you suffer twice. Once from the pain itself, and again from the fear of facing it. But when you surrender, the energy shifts. You begin to realize that pain isn't chasing you, it's guiding you. Every emotion you've been avoiding, the sadness, the anger, the emptiness, carries wisdom. The universe doesn't ask you to suppress it, it asks you to feel it fully. Because feeling is how you release what you refuse to feel. You continue to carry, and the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. In surrender, something magical happens. You stop asking why me, and start asking what is this teaching me. The moment your mindset shifts from victimhood to growth, you reclaim your power. You stop seeing pain as an obstacle, and begin to recognize it as a passage, a sacred transformation. Life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens through you. You realize that everything you've lost was never truly yours to keep, but everything you've gained through loss, resilience, wisdom, compassion, can never be taken away. Surrender doesn't mean you no longer feel the pain. It means you stop resisting its purpose. It means you allow yourself to cry, to break, to be still, knowing that this breaking is also a becoming. You begin to see that the universe works in cycles: creation, destruction, renewal. Every heartbreak is simply part of that rhythm. You can't bloom forever. Sometimes you have to shed the old petals for the new ones to grow. And though it may feel like dying, what's really happening is rebirth. The moment you stop trying to force life to fit your expectations, peace starts to slip in quietly. You begin to trust that what's meant for you can't be lost, and what's lost was never meant to stay. That realization is liberation. It's the soft hum of acceptance that replaces the noise of resistance. It's the calm that says, I don't need to control this anymore. I can let life loose. And in that space, something shifts. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It becomes wisdom. It becomes light. Surrender is not weakness. It's alignment. It's choosing to believe that even in your heartbreak, you are being guided towards something greater, something truer. You may not see it yet, but the universe is not dismantling your life. It's rearranging it to match your soul. Because sometimes the only way to find peace is to stop fighting the storm and let it carry you home. After the storm passes, something quietly changes within you. The noise fades, the tears dry, and in the stillness, you start to feel a faint sense of clarity, a soft voice that was always there, just waiting for the chaos to end. You realize that the version of you who walked into the heartbreak is not the same one who's walking out. The pain, as cruel as it felt, has sculpted you into someone deeper, gentler, wise. This is the rebirth of the soul, not in some dramatic burst of light, but in small, sacred moments of understanding. At first, it's hard to recognize it as rebirth, because it feels like emptiness. You no longer crave what you once did. You no longer find meaning in what used to excite you. The world seems quieter, slower, different, but that emptiness isn't loss. It's space. It's the soul making room for truth. When the heart breaks, it doesn't just shatter, it expands. It opens wider than it ever has, creating space for compassion, forgiveness, and a love that's not bound by conditions. You begin to see that your pain didn't destroy your capacity to love. It purified it. You love differently now, with awareness, with presence, with boundaries that come from understanding your worth. The universe doesn't break you just to rebuild you the same way. It rebuilds you with new eyes. You start noticing beauty in the ordinary, the way sunlight hits your face in the morning, the silence between two songs, the peace in solitude. What once felt unbearable begins to feel sacred. You stop needing everything to make sense. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are. You stop trying to prove your value to anyone. Instead, you return to yourself, the real you, the one beneath all the noise, the one who existed before the world told you who to be. There's a profound humility that comes after deep heartbreak. You no longer judge life by what it gives or takes. You begin to honor it simply for what it is. You understand that love was never meant to be owned, only experienced. That endings don't mean failure. They mean transformation, and that every soul you meet, no matter how briefly, plays a role in your awakening. Even the ones who hurt you were mirrors, reflecting back the parts of you that needed healing. You start to forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Slowly, your pain turns into wisdom. The scars that once felt heavy now remind you of your resilience. You begin to trust yourself again, not the self that's afraid of losing, but the self that knows it can survive loss. That realization changes everything. You stop living from fear and start living from truth. You make decisions, not to please others, but to honor your soul. You learn to say no without guilt, to walk away without resentment, to stay soft without being fragile. You realize that healing wasn't about going back to who you were before the heartbreak. It was about becoming who you were meant to be because of it. And that's when the rebirth truly happens. Quietly, naturally, without effort. You no longer seek culture from the past because you've made peace with it. You no longer chase the future because you trust it will arrive in its own time. You simply exist, open, aware, alive. The universe didn't break your heart to destroy you. It broke it to rebuild you into someone who sees life, not as a series of losses, but as a journey of becoming. Because sometimes, being broken is the only way to finally be whole. And so, when the universe breaks your heart, don't curse the pain, listen to it. Every tear, every ache, every silence is a message guiding you back home, to yourself. The breaking was never the end, it was the beginning of your becoming. You were never being punished, you were being prepared, because sometimes the universe has to tear down what you think you are, to reveal who you were always meant to be. The heartbreak, only so the soul can finally open.